Welcome to More Than a Muse podcast, a podcast all about women and the arts, hosted by Stani and Sadie.
Join us as we explore what it's like being a female artist, examine modern-day problems, and educate ourselves and you on important and forgotten female artists of the past.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week with More Than a Muse. I'm Sadie.
And I'm Stani, and thank you guys for being here. It's just really exciting to be back here again. It's like my favorite day of the week.
I know. It's like my weekly call with Stani where we get to talk about everything, get all caught up. It's great. I love it.
And I love that it's like topics you can't really bring up in normal conversation all the time.
True. Like there's not always like a great transition into some forgotten women artists from history.
Exactly. Or like a weird facet of like feminism or something within the arts. Like you can't really like just bring that up casually.
I know.
But it does make me feel very prepared that if anyone ever did, I would be like, oh, I researched that in depth.
Like, in fact, I have a Google Doc that I can reference and a recorded episode if you want to know my further thoughts.
Let me send you the links. So I hope it does the same for all the listeners. I think it's just fun. Like, I don't know, learn about cool new things and people and, I don't know, make you a more interesting person.
True. And also, if you are ever in a situation where someone is telling you that sexism does not exist in the arts, there you go. You have about almost 40 worth of episodes that you can send people full of stories. So you're welcome. We're just giving you all this ammo ready to go.
Yeah, we are. And it's researched. We have got links, documents, examples. There you go, people.
We have a book list for more further readings on Amazon. We've got it. We've got you covered.
If you ever need to write like a senior thesis on sexism within the arts, we've got every single facet for you.
We really do.
We're really selling ourselves this time.
Wow, we're amazing. Okay, well, this episode's fun because we are talking about movie tropes.
Yes.
Which, these are fun. They're
so
many.
So fun. And there's so many of them, which makes sense because like film has been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
And if we know anything about movies, that they love to put people in stereotypes and boxes.
Yes.
And then those get translated into other movies and then they become ongoing tropes forever.
Do you feel like there was any particular movie trope or like character that like resonated with you as like a young person?
Yeah, I think probably different time periods of my life I felt a little bit more with one than the other or whatever. I will say, like, we're gonna talk about it in this episode, the weird girl.
Oh yeah.
But specifically like the space cadet one, which is its own little sub trope. Kind of like Phoebe from Friends, Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter. I wasn't actually her, but I wanted to be so badly.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like,
I think I agree. Like, I wanted to be the quirky weird girl. Also, was kind of like chasing this like manic pixie dream girl of like being so interesting. And maybe some things I did were forced in an attempt to be that way. But I don't know.
No, I remember the first time I heard about a manic pixie dream girl, I was actually really fascinated by it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to be described in that way. Because it sounds so pretty, you know, like a manic pixie dream girl. Like she's quirky and different. She's not like other girls. And she's like the perfect stereotype of a male fantasy, which when you're a teenage girl, like that's kind of what you want to be. All I wanted
was to achieve male fantasy. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think probably every girl goes through this. And probably boys in some extent, too. There's a lot of male tropes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's as many, but I could be wrong. There might be.
It is interesting how many tropes are. And, like, while, like, today we're obviously focusing a whole lot on gender, like, even, like, racially.
There's so many racial tropes.
Yeah, which just like makes caricatures of people. And also too, like within relationships.
Yeah.
Like I think my biggest thing was, so you know the movie The Notebook, which is a great well, I hate that movie actually now. Because like picture 16-year-old Sadie like watching that movie for the first time. holding this stuffed animal and sobbing because, oh my, like, it's like when you see those kind of movies and, like, you know, their love was like very toxic. And it romanticizes it. And I was like, wow, maybe this person is my soulmate. And it's like, no, you shouldn't be fighting that often. you know? Like, this isn't an example. Which we're not going to talk a lot about relationships. I don't think we're going to talk about, like, the relationship stereotypes or the male, the woman,
but we
man.
could.
We could. That could be a whole other episode, like the dynamic of men and women in these movies. But I think that's, like, the one that was, like, very lasting for me. And then once I was, like, in my early 20s, I was like, which I guess I still am in my early 20s, but, you know, once I grew up a little bit, I was like, wait a minute, I do not want to have a relationship like that. Like, what an experience.
No, definitely. I also feel like I've seen, like, kind of a resurgence of tropes and, like, people really loving on them. In, like, the TikTok trend, you know, that I'm not the main character, I'm the...
Oh, yeah.
First off, I just want to say, like, you are not a trope. You're a multifaceted person who can change throughout your life. You don't have to be an example of, like, a fantasy person or, like, a certain stereotype or myth. Like, no one is.
Yes.
And actually, I feel like a lot of harm is caused by women perpetuating tropes.
Yeah.
Which I'll talk about a lot in the cool girl trope, because that one's really messed up and has actually messed up part of our society.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't romanticize being a stereotype. You can be whoever you want.
And also, I feel like we'll talk about this too. As we were doing research for all these tropes, what I thought was so interesting was that a lot of the movie examples for these were like chick flicks or movies that are created for women. Yeah. And I'm like, so it's so interesting that in movies that are created for women, that these women's stereotypes, and it's not just like only like the cool, super cool, amazing, like tough girls. It's like the weird girls, the sidekick best friend,
the super feminine girls,
the dumb blondes. Like they're all in movies that are supposed to be for women, and it's like so interesting that like growing up we were like okay with like accepting that, and that it's like almost like you said, like women are kind of sometimes are pushing these stereotypes on. I don't know. It's just weird.
No, definitely. I think the more and more I like learn about a lot of feminism, the more I realize that men aren't always the biggest problem with it. Because collectively as a whole, if we as all women could agree on the ideas of feminism and that women are equal and the standards that should be upheld, like men wouldn't stand a chance fighting against that. Women could so very easily topple the system if we were unified. It's the issue that everyone has different ideas on things based on how they were raised or everything else. And so I think a lot of the times women perpetuate it further onto other women.
Or, it's just like the internalized misogyny of it all, right? And I feel like kind of like we were talking about, like with as teenagers, we wanted to be that manic pixie dream girl. Like, because the last thing I wanted to be was like other girls. Like, I thought if I was like other girls, I was less than. And all I wanted was to get the approval of men, which totally resulted in me being, you know, like not wanting to be friends with girls as a teenager.
I know.
I don't know. It's just like really crazy how much like that internalized misogyny is like perpetuated by just other women, and that other men sometimes aren't as big of pushers for that, you know? I mean, obviously it is meant to, but I don't know. It's just weird. Well, should we dive into these tropes now?
Yes. First off, I'm gonna give a little note. There are tons of tropes, so many that we couldn't dive into all of them. When we originally started out doing the research and think about how many there were, and so I just started at the top of the list, which I'm sure you did too, and just kind of went through them. So like we mentioned, there's a lot of racist stereotypes that we probably won't dive into that much. I wanted to bring up specifically like the spicy Latina, the strong black woman, or the model minority. Yeah. There's less tropes for people of color because people of color aren't represented as much. But I feel like that it means that it's more harmful because it gives them less
because
boxes.
whenever they are seen, they're only seen as one thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, oh, they're the one black character who fits this one trope because that's like all we've got.
Sassy black woman who's there to like give advice or funny commentary on the side, or like give advice to the main character.
Yes. Just to bring that up, like a lot of the tropes we cover, I think are all predominantly for like white women. Yeah. And that was not on purpose. That was just like from the most popular tropes. But I wanted to mention that the racist ones are way more harmful than any of these others will be. Like it's way worse to be only seen as like one type of person than to like sometimes be referred to as a dumb blonde. So
yeah, like I said, I feel like a lot of these like movie tropes, while like they come from sexist ideas, like like really what's the harm in like the occasional dumb blonde joke, like it's while like I think we need to check the messaging we're giving to young girls, at the end of the day, like I don't think it's harmful, and I don't think that can be weaponized.
Yeah, and it's been challenged a lot more. Like all these other tropes have been challenged a lot, and that's something we can talk about a lot too, on like how they have changed over time. Yeah. But a lot of those racist stereotypes are still there, and they haven't been able to evolve as much. So,
or like they're just like more recently, you're finally seeing like pushback on that more mainstream.
Exactly. So just that note there, and I wish we had enough time to dive into all of those as well. Time is just limited, so that's the note at the beginning. Disclaimer that we are not perfect in our intersectionalism right here, but we're trying. So
you want to start with the cool girl trope.
The cool girl, I would say, is probably the most interesting one to me out of all of the tropes, because I feel like she like hid for a really long time before anyone called her out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Like the other ones, I feel like people were more aware of it. I think this one kind of like hid under the scenes for a long time. So the cool girl was finally like solidified as a trope in the movie Gone Girl, which I haven't seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either yet.
Yeah, but it came out in 2014. And basically, it's actually a thriller, which is really funny to me. But it's based on a novel by Gillian Flynn. It's this idea that this wife of this guy had pretended to be the cool girl for so long that she basically like drove herself to the point of insanity and kind of let this guy like stomp all over her, do whatever he wanted, and just continued to play this role in his life. I'll read part of the monologue from the movie. It's actually really, really interesting. So here's part of the monologue. So men always say that as the defining compliment, don't they? She's a cool girl. Being the cool girl means I am hot, brilliant, funny woman who adores football, poker, dirty jokes, and burping, who plays video games, drinks cheap beer, loves threesomes and anal sex, and jams hot dogs and hamburgers into her mouth like she's hosting the world's biggest culinary gangbang while somehow maintaining a size 2. Because above all else, cool girls are hot. Hot and understanding. Cool girls never get angry. They only smile in a chagrined, loving manner and let their men do whatever they want. Go ahead, S word, on me. I don't mind. I'm the cool girl. So it's kind of all of those. It's basically the epitome of not like other girls.
Yeah.
Like really. It's a girl who loves sports and cars and junk food, and she's just super effortlessly hot and skinny no matter what she eats. She's one of the guys. She's raunchy, uninhibited, chill, never angry. And the harmful parts behind it is that no one is this girl. Like, even if you are interested in cars and sports and things like that, which women totally can be, you usually don't fulfill this like male fantasy in the way that the cool girl does. And it's because it's a myth basically created by men and perpetuated by women. It's the male fantasy. Yeah. She looks exactly how he wants her to, but she acts like she's one of the guys. So it's like a supermodel who's actually a guy in disguise.
Well, I feel like so much of it is like, it's also like the chill girl, right? The cool girl, the chill girl, where it's like it allows women to be mistreated and it allows the man to do whatever they want, you know, like be disloyal, do this because she wants to be cool. She wants to be chill. She doesn't want to be viewed as high maintenance or doesn't want to be viewed as needy. Like that's the last thing you would want a man to think of you as. And so you like, no, I'm just go with the flow, easy going. When it's like, no, you're just giving men, or like it gives men permission, this stereotype, to mistreat you.
And they said the hardest part with it is that it actually like, it doesn't challenge misogyny in any way, even though women aren't fulfilling the traditional like female roles of like female stereotypes in this. It's actually treating her as an exception. So it's like, oh, well, misogyny exists, but not for me because I'm one of the guys. And that's the problem, is that it like completely dances around the idea of feminism and like ignores it. And that's not healthy.
Also,
in any
like,
way.
Who decided that feminine things were uncool?
I know.
You know, like, why can't someone be hyper feminine and also be very cool? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's got a lot of criticism because they said it shows a lot of like maybe some like homophobic tendencies with guys that like they're attracted to men who have hot female bodies. Basically, is the idea behind the cool girl, because they want another one of the guys who just looks like a girl. And it's just like this weird idea of like men wanting men kind of, but like who are hot. So there's a lot of criticism for that. It also like really pits women against each other. One of my favorite chick flicks is actually How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, but it is the epitome of this stereotype though. Where she's like the cool girl, and then she does all of the girly girl things in order to drive this guy away, and he ends up falling in love with her anyway because she's so cool.
Yeah.
It's just the epitome of that stereotype, and I still love that movie, and it's a great movie. I was gonna say,
and it's a shame because that's such a good movie. I love that one.
But it shows like she really is the epitome of a cool girl. She loves junk food and poker and basketball, and like isn't the clingy girly girl. She's the cool girl. So yeah, that's kind of the epitome of it. It also happens in real life all the time. It mentioned the 2013 Oscars where Jennifer Lawrence and Anne Hathaway were both awarded. And Jennifer Lawrence like tripped up the stairs, like said something about how, oh, sorry, I took a shot right before this, and like stumbled over her words. Talked about how she had just eaten like a Philly cheesesteak, like a bunch of other stuff. I think she even like burped in an interview or whatever. Whereas Anne Hathaway went up and kind of had the traditional like female appearance, and she was kind of like, oh my gosh, like it finally came true, and was just like so happy, and she was delicate and feminine and composed. And a lot of people got mad at Anne Hathaway for being so composed and said that it was fake, and they were like laughing at Jennifer Lawrence and saying she was so relatable and real. And one of the issues with that is that both of them are fulfilling like a female role, but one's considered better than the other because she's cool.
Yeah.
And it's
when it's like if that's just genuinely who they are, like let's just let them be who they are.
Yeah.
And realize that, yeah, Anne Hathaway's not uncool because that's just how she is.
Yep. And Jennifer Lawrence has actually been criticized a lot for like playing up the stereotype of being like a cool girl. And it's actually been interesting, like the older she's gotten, I think it's like diminished a lot and she's grown out of it because the movie Gone Girl even like emphasizes the fact that the cool girl isn't something you can maintain. You can't literally like let everyone stomp all over you and be completely fine with it your entire life without any like repercussions.
Yeah.
Like it'll either lead to like you completely breaking down and having like a mental breakdown, or like, I don't know, like a whole other mental health issues, like all sorts of stuff. Like no one is able to do that. It's not sustainable. It doesn't work like that. Like nobody can function that way.
I feel like I particularly resonate with this one because I think growing up, and even like I think still like there's a part of me who is like, I will be good enough once I'm cool. And I've always like viewed myself as like perpetually uncool. Like that's like something I'm very insecure about, is that I'm not cool. And there's been so many times like my husband Jordan, he's like, but Sadie, what does cool mean? Like what are you deciding that cool is? And I think like growing up, like I mentioned, like I just wanted to be chill. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be easygoing. I wanted people to view me as that. And so now I'm like very out of practice, even for just like standing up for myself. Because like for so long, I just wanted to be chill. I just wanted to be cool. I just wanted to be go with the flow. But like there are instances where I should not have been. And it's, yeah, you're right. Like it's just not sustainable to like live that way and to like allow yourself to be treated that way too.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's a difference between being like an easygoing person and being a doormat. Like,
yeah.
And I think that's the difference with the cool girls. Like you can't let your significant other get away with anything. Like a relationship
because you
doesn't
just
work
want to
like
be
that.
cool.
Yeah. So there's a ton of cool girls obviously in film. It happens a lot in like action films, but it does happen in chick flicks as well. There's a movie called There's Something About Mary that apparently is like a huge epitome of the cool girl as well. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, like I brought up with Andy. Donna in That 70s Show. Robin from How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, yeah.
Kate from the movie Lost. Megan Fox in Transformers. Her character Michaela is like the epitome of that. And even Black Widow in Avengers. This was an interesting thing. So one of the things about the cool girl is that it only works if she's comforting and not challenging, so she doesn't surpass the men in their talents. And one of the things about Black Widow is that she never outshines any of the other Avengers. But Captain Marvel got a ton of backlash for being too strong, too this, too that, after her movie came out because she outshined a lot of the other characters. So that kind of shows the cool girl in action of like, oh, you're allowed to be cool as long as you don't outshine the men.
Yeah.
And then this one was also super interesting. So Miss Congeniality, have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. Long time. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, I've seen it.
So one of the cool things about this one is that it shows that the cool girl isn't considered cool until she's hot. And that's like really the defining characteristic of a cool girl.
Is that they're also hot.
Yeah, because Sandra Bullock in the film, like she likes to go to bars, she eats junk food, she's super physically fit and like into all the things that the guys are into. But until she's hot, she's not like the cool girl.
Not considered a good thing.
Yeah, she's not attractive, nothing like that. She's like not the cool girl until she has her makeover. And then all of a sudden these guys are like falling over their face to get to her because then she's so desirable. So yeah, that's the cool girl. It's a very interesting stereotype. There's way more into it, and I think there's so many facets of this stereotype too.
Totally.
It's really interesting. The next one is the blonde, and I put the blank blonde because there's multiple. Yeah. I started out with the dumb blonde, and then there's literally so many different kinds of blondes in film. Yeah. So obviously when you think of a blonde in film, the first movie that probably comes to your mind is Legally Blonde. Which is actually really good because it helps bring to light a lot of the blonde stereotypes and like the cultural origins of blonde stereotypes. So that's like a really great film that if you're trying to determine.
Like Miss Elwood's, her femininity, that's such a weird word to say. Like that was her superpower in the end, and I just love that movie.
Oh, yeah. No, it's good. It challenges so many of these stereotypes, and it's amazing. So the idea of the blonde trope is that basically it turns the blonde female into an object and like basically like sexualizes them, like just inherently. They said it's like even a historical issue. Prostitutes were often blonde in ancient Rome. Like that was a sign. That's what they would do in order to like signal who they were. And even throughout history in like paintings, Eve was painted as blonde because she was like the temptress, you know, who tempted Adam, whereas the Virgin Mary's always been painted as a brunette, which shows like the rival of the blonde versus brunette trope, which is a whole other thing we could dive into. But it's basically like the Marilyn Monroe versus the Jackie Kennedy, you know,
or like Audrey Hepburn.
Yes, which is even seen in Legally Blonde, where you have like the Marilyn type character versus like the Jackie type character, or Gossip Girl, Blair versus Serena, or Riverdale, Betty versus Veronica. The good thing is that a lot of these more modern takes help unify the duo in the end. But
like Legally Blonde, they end up both leaving the guy and becoming best friends, which is just a great ending of that movie.
Yeah. But usually this like fight between the blonde and brunette is over a man or some sort of status. It usually also helps continue the false narrative of like beauty and brains. Like you can't be pretty and smart. It's like the brunette's usually the smart one. Yeah. And the blonde is the pretty one, and you can only have one of those.
Like and pretty and smart?
Yeah, that's just not possible. But yeah, it also like pigeonholes and limits women into one avenue of accomplishments. And that's what the blonde is seen to do a lot. It's like, oh, well, you're blonde. You're pretty. Like, that's your superpower.
Yeah. Like, there's your contribution to society.
And that's one of the things about Legally Blonde that's so great is the fact that it challenges that so completely. Yeah. And shows like, oh, she is pretty, but she's also really, really smart. Like, yeah, that's how it works. So there's a couple of like subcategories of blondes. You have like the ice cold blonde or the cool blonde. This is actually, they said it's seen a lot in like Alfred Hitchcock films. So it's like they're hiding something. They're not to be trusted. They're a little aloof and dangerous. But I think that also,
you know what it makes me think of, like, you know, The Incredibles. Mm-hmm. I don't remember her name, but the girl who like calls Mr. Incredibles, who's like icy blonde, who is like brings him on his missions and things like that.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember her name, but anyway,
I don't either.
That's the one I could think of.
Mm-hmm. That's them. And it also, I think it borders into like the femme fatale area.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't think we talk about, but it is another trope. The next one is like the blonde bombshell, which is super common. It's explosive sexuality, but usually at a price. So it's like, oh, like she's the lesson that the guy has to learn somehow or something. Yeah. Raw, inhuman creature, prize to be bought, pure unrivaled sex appeal that's not uncomplicated by many thoughts. She's not considered a dumb blonde per se, but they're usually not seen as like the genius.
Yeah.
Whereas like the dumb blonde is usually a little bit more ditzy. Still has like that over-sexualized, but a lot of it's more exaggerated denseness, and it's cultivated to appeal to men. So Marilyn Monroe is like the epitome of this. And it's actually sad because most women who play dumb blondes are actually really, really smart. Like Marilyn Monroe was actually really clever, and Paris Hilton played a dumb blonde character for a really long time, even in her own life. And she's actually not an idiot. She's really clever, but she played this trope. And most of the time it's like a marketing decision. They're trying to appeal to a certain audience. I think Marilyn Monroe even has a line in a movie she's in where she talks about the fact that she can be smart when she needs to, but men don't usually like that. And I feel like that's the epitome of a dumb blonde. Also more modernly in like the 80s, 90s, especially in Legally Blonde, the Valley Girl was often seen as like the dumb blonde.
Yes.
Girls who only liked to go shopping and get their nails done and do their hair and everything, and like who were superficial. Also like Cher from Clueless. It's often referred to as the dumb blonde. However, that movie was also able to challenge the dumb blonde stereotype. So it's been challenged a lot, which is really, really good. But it was around for a very long time. Some of the ways it's been challenged is like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Also, this one's really funny. If you've seen Arrested Development, the character that Charlize Theron plays, like the mentally handicapped female.
Okay.
This is like the perfect example of like how they made fun of the dumb blonde trope, because she's mentally handicapped, but no one notices because they just assume that her simple mind is a part of her blonde charm.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So that was kind of a funny way that they played at that. Parks and Rec with like Leslie Knope, Cher from Clueless. But however, it still exists. It's still there. We've got the Karen from Mean Girls, Marilyn Monroe, Frenchie in Grease. Like the dumb blonde will continue to be a trope in media for a really long time.
Totally. I mean, yeah. I mean, even just like with the silly dumb blonde jokes that we would hear like at school, like it's still there.
I feel like it's died down a lot, which is really good.
Yeah.
But I feel like when someone says dumb blonde, like everyone's always going to know exactly what they're referring to.
Like I said, it's like one of those things where it's like, is it really like harming or is it like weaponizing? No, but like, and like obviously we all know women can be blonde and smart, but like it is still perpetuated in media a little bit. So
no, and I'm just glad
it's forever.
Yeah, it's been challenged so many times now that I feel like we're at the point where it's not as harmful because there's so many counter examples of it. So that's one of the things I love about the blonde tropes is that they're not as common anymore.
Like the Valley Girl, ditzy, blonde, like that's been challenged like enough at this point.
Yeah.
We love early 2000s rom-coms. Okay, well, this trope is one we're pretty familiar with. This is the working woman. And there's kind of two facets of it. So it's either that it's like she's like the evil, cold-hearted working woman, right? Who's almost like the boss, like a Devil's Wears Prada, right? Or it's the one more like the protagonist of the movie. She's pursuing her career or pursuing her working woman, and then she sacrifices her career, sacrifices her relationships, and in the end learns that the relationships are the most important thing. Which, like, yeah, I think family is important to prioritize, and like I think personal relationships are great, but I mean it's like, you know, with like it makes the point that there's not really that many movies about men who can't balance work and home life, you know?
Yeah. And no one ever makes a movie about a guy at the end where he realizes he doesn't need a job.
And he should just, or like doesn't take a promotion or I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a couple, like I'm trying to think of maybe like there's movies where like the dad is like absent from the home and then he comes home. But I feel like it's always like in the extremes where they're like completely absent and then come home, whereas it's like the woman is just like, life's a little bit more chaotic now, and it's like, and I don't want it to be. You know what I mean? No,
I get that. And it's more of like, those ones are more of like a father kind of thing than like a romantic interest.
That's a good point. So yes, there's the working woman. This is kind of like a good quote that I liked from it. From an article. It said, other than understanding the demands of her work life, the man in the picture is unable to accept her responsibilities. He either gives her an ultimatum, me or the job, or undermines their relationship by cheating or wanting a divorce. Why does she have to pick? Both work and relationships are important to her, yet she has to choose because the man is seemingly uncomfortable with her success. And I mean, I feel like this is such like a important thing to like recognize, like is just a trope, because I mean, the truth is, like, what is work-life balance? Like, that's something that everyone is trying to figure out, you know? Like, it's not something that's just for women. And then to say that because there's not perfect balance means that you have to not be a working person or a working woman. Like, what? No. Like, that's not really a thing.
Yeah. Do you listen? Sorry, do you listen to the Bad Broadcast?
I do. I was literally just going to reference that.
No, for those of you who don't, you should definitely check it out. Maddie Murphy is another fellow Utah podcaster. But her episode yesterday with Post Accessories, the owner, CEO of Post, and how she talked about how a work-life balance doesn't exist. It's a myth. Nobody has it. We're all just trying. Like, sometimes your work gets more, sometimes your life gets more. Like, that's the balance. You can't have a 50-50 split in anything.
Yeah. And to like, I think women especially feel so much pressure to find that, because it's like, you know, like for so long, stay-at-home mom was like the priority. And then now so many, you know, women are working now that it's like, how do I do both? And it's like, no one knows how to do it. We're just figuring it out. And sometimes, you know, certain aspects of your life you sacrifice and then you figure it out as you go. Like, you don't have to do one or the other perfectly. You can do both messy and still be a success, I think.
No, definitely. I agree.
And then, of course, some examples of that is like I mentioned, the Devil Wears Prada. That's like the classic example, I think, of this.
I feel like both of the characters in that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like where like there's like the boss in charge who's like the stone, hard, cold, like evil boss, right? Who's like bossy and everyone hates her. Then there's the one who her work becomes a problem in her relationships. So
yeah, because he's not willing to let her work hard for her job.
Doesn't in the end she like end up being with him?
I think she leaves him, doesn't she?
Oh, that's good. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie.
Yeah, same. I don't think she stays with him. I think she just decides she doesn't care enough about the job to stay.
We can respect that. Respect boundaries.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, you don't have to like work your butt off for a job you hate. That doesn't really help either.
That's kind of like the thing. It's like this like weird, like, don't sacrifice your relationships for your job, but like also if you're working that hard and you hate it, don't sacrifice your life for your job. Like the thing with like these tropes is like there's some truth to it. Like there's absolutely truth to the trope that like if you are sacrificing so much that other aspects of your life are like not healthy and you're not able to maintain it, like, yeah, you get to reevaluate and like figure out what you really want and what's important to you. But at the same time, like, to the way that it's so heavily put on women and the way that like it's like saying like, oh, and it's okay if your partner like to do it for a romantic interest. It's like no. I don't like it.
No. Plus I think like in real relationships there's just compromise, like
constant.
Yeah, you figure it out. Like if one of you wants to do something, you don't immediately diminish that. You're like, no, you can't. You know?
Yeah.
Like you find a way to make it work. And sometimes that means like putting someone's dreams on the back burner while the other person does. And sometimes that's the opposite. Like that's how it should work. So
exactly. And it's like that constant give and take for what does like make sense within like a partnership.
Another example of this I just thought about is Leap Year. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Where she like goes on the journey. She's the working woman. And then at the end, doesn't she just end up moving to Ireland with him?
I think so.
Yeah. Once again, super cute movie. Doesn't diminish the fact that it's really good. But yeah, I think she does give up everything and move to Ireland for him.
I mean, like, in a way, like, I get it. Like, there's something kind of romantic about that.
Yeah.
But also, like, why?
Yeah. The idea that, like, you can sacrifice everything for a relationship.
And for true love. Like, of course, like, we're all attracted to that. But, like, I don't know. Let's be practical, people.
Well, it sounds really nice, doesn't it, in theory?
Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. I'm not saying, like, be practical. But, I don't know. Part of it's
yeah, I think
thing.
it's just a balance.
Don't mind us like figuring it out in life.
I know.
Being like, as I sit here and analyze what I think of my own romanticism.
I know, me too. I'm like, why was I so like against the idea of dropping everything to move to Ireland for the love of your life? And I was like, man, like I guess I would do that for Jordan, but why am I mocking it in this instance?
Yeah.
Well, the weird part about that movie is that I'm looking back on it is the focus was on his dreams. Like her whole focus was getting to her fiance to propose so she could have the apartment and the job and the fiance that she always wanted. And his was like he wanted to save his bar and like open a restaurant and stuff. And at the end of it, she realizes that she doesn't want her dreams, but there's like no focus on like, okay, what are you going to do when you move to Ireland? Are you going to keep your job?
Like, is there another like sub passion of your life that you're now going to pursue because you're with this man? Or
is she just going to like go be with him and help him run the restaurant? I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. I guess maybe they figured it out after, but
we'll hope that in the unscreened sequel that she was able to fulfill her passions. We're going to take a quick break just to spotlight one of our new favorite women artists.
Okay, guys, we're going to do something a little different today, and we're going to spotlight a few podcasts by women that we have been listening to and enjoying. So you can check those out.
Let me just go through. I'm like looking through my recently played. I've truthfully been listening to a ton of Be There in 5.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a good one.
I love Be There in 5. That's been like a more recent obsession that I love. This is probably a basic one. I love What We Said. Look forward to that one every Tuesday. Oh my gosh,
we both do. Love What We Said. I've listened to every podcast. I also follow JC and Chelsea on every social media platform
Me too.
That they have. So if you aren't listening to that, go check it out.
Here's one. So this one isn't by a woman, but it's about Dolly Parton. Ooh. Dolly Parton's America is super good. It's just like a one season show. It's about like 10 episodes long or 11. I don't know. I love this podcast. It's my favorite. Would recommend. You learn so much about Dolly Parton and what's not to love about Dolly Parton.
Do you listen to The Morning Toast?
I don't.
I love the Morning Toast. So it's basically
looking up the Morning Toast,
a daily news podcast. It comes out every day that they can. They have some off days, but it's usually Monday through Friday every day. It's two sisters, and they talk about things that are going on. They call it the Fast 5 stories that you need to know before you wake up and take a bite out of your morning toast. And yes, I know that I've memorized it because they say it every single day.
Love it.
But it's fun because it's like the happy news. You know what I mean? They don't really cover a lot of like the so-and-so declared war and politics and stuff like that. It's more of the stuff I care about, which sounds horrible, but
no, I get it. I mean, I feel like there's nothing wrong with wanting to start your day off knowing about the happy things going on in the world.
Yep.
I think that's fair.
So love that. There's also another one that I've heard about, but I haven't listened to yet. But I'm just going to say it anyway. It's called Bias Bender, and it's by Kayla Stokes, and she's actually exploring the lives and stories of Black women. So kind of like our podcast, but specifically Black women in any industry.
What is that called again?
Bias Bender.
Aha, Bias Bender. There we go. I just subscribed.
There's What's Her Name? I think we follow them.
What's Her Name is cool.
They talk about a bunch of different women from history.
There's also Art Pop Talk. They are a recent follower. They're apparently a sister duo for a weekly Art Pop Talk. Talk about art history and pop culture, which is awesome.
Upcoming is the Film Fatales podcast. I know they haven't launched yet, but that's very fitting for this episode if you want to learn more about women in film.
Yeah, I love that.
Also, in this episode, we mentioned the Bad Broadcast, which we're both.
We definitely should mention her again. I love
Avid
that. It's
listeners.
So good. Oh, also, I don't know if I talked about this, but the Ringer Dish, they do a series of like every album ever for
you talked about this.
Taylor Swift. If you haven't listened to that one, do it. I love it. So there's some podcasts I've been loving.
Yeah, same. And there's this really great one called More Than a Muse.
Oh, you might have heard of it. All right, now back to the show. Okay, well, moving on here. We got the Mean Girl.
Oh, yeah, the Mean Girl, which is another one that ended up with a whole movie that challenges
I love
this
the
trope.
movie Mean Girls, so.
Oh, yeah. Now, this one is very interesting. I feel like I learned so much from this. I should have told everyone at the beginning. There is a YouTube channel called The Take.
Yeah.
I will link it because they have an entire playlist on TV and movie tropes. And that's where got a ton of information. It's amazing. They go into a lot of stuff. They show clips. They have examples. It's awesome. So I will link that in the show notes for all of you. So the Mean Girl. She's confident and capable, but she takes everything to the extreme, manipulates for personal entertainment, is glamorously charismatic. So people who hate them still want them to like you. Like you hate them, but you still want them to be your friend because something about them just makes you want to be liked by them.
Yeah.
They have a realistic but cynical understanding of the world, are usually miserable with the social hierarchy, but instead of overcoming it, they choose to perpetuate it and rise to the top. So kind of setting up their own government.
Yeah.
And usually in every show, there's the fall of the mean girl, and it perpetuates the idea that power corrupts and eventually you fall. The interesting part about it that I never really thought about is that the core identity of the mean girl is actually that she's angry. It's rage. She's a misunderstood kid who's angry with the way things are, and so she weaponizes relationships, uses rumors and lies as outlets, because this is where the sexism comes in. Men are allowed to be aggressive in high school. Like, they get into fights, they have problems, they have sports that are more aggressive as outlets, whereas women societally aren't usually allowed to be as aggressive. So they use rumors, lies, relationships, and everything as a different outlet for their aggression.
So, like, it's really just like female rage.
Yeah, it's just them perpetuating like their angry teenager selves.
I mean, fair.
Yeah, because men are allowed to have an outlet for it and women aren't. They said the counterpart is usually like the jock bully, like the mean football player.
Yes.
But something that's actually interesting about that is that while that trope of a jock bully is usually like an idiot. Like he's usually really dumb and dull. The mean girl is like strikingly clever and smart. Like in every
she's so
film.
schemy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting that like the counterparts of the two are very different. Also, another idea behind it is that girls are bored. So like the Burn book, you can't tell me that was out of anything other than boredom.
Yeah, totally.
They're bored, so they bully for entertainment. And it's also a criticism on the fact that there's not enough outlets for women in society. Like it's showing that there's apparently not good enough outlets for women to express their anger or their boredom or their aggression. And that's one of the things that Mean Girls shows really well is at the end, like Regina is able to channel her aggression into lacrosse and she's actually really talented at it. And it shows that like, yeah, like the Mean Girl is usually just really angry and she doesn't have a way to
channel that.
Express that. Yeah. A part of the trope is usually it's a beautiful popular girl who has everything and somehow hates the normal basic girl for no reason or some reason that doesn't really make sense. And I think part of that goes into the fact that they hate the social hierarchy. So anyone who challenges it, they're against them automatically, even though they're at the top.
Yeah.
Mean Girls also like know that the system could fall at any time. And that's why they're so manipulative. Because they're really realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. They know that they're not untouchable. Even though they seem untouchable, they know that at any minute it could all go.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. It also shows like the ideas that girls understand how other girls feel, so they know how to harm them more. So kind of like how women can be a lot harder to other women than men ever could. And it also just shows like a lot of weaponized abilities. So like ambition, talent, and confidence are all like good qualities. And in men, they're usually like praised a ton, even like aggression and competitiveness. But without the right coping mechanisms, it turns them into a mean girl because society limits them to only being pretty. So it gave me like this new appreciation for like the mean girl where I'm like, oh, I'm never going to look at a mean girl in a movie ever again.
She just needs a hug or a punching bag or both.
Yep. And some examples are like Cheryl Blossom from Riverdale, like her screwed up family. So she kind of takes it out on everyone else. But when she's able to express her aggression, she like mellows out a lot more.
Okay, yeah.
Regina George from Mean Girls, same thing. Heathers, that show. Sharpay from High School Musical.
Pause. Have you seen that YouTube video? I think it's like Film Theory. I don't know for sure. Where it's like Sharpay did nothing wrong.
Oh, I believe it. She didn't.
Yeah. Have you seen that? I'm going to send you the link to the video if you haven't seen it. It's so good.
Please do.
But literally, like, it goes through the whole show and it's like, they've built this theater department. Of course she would be wary of, like, of course she would be skeptical if they're involved in so many different hobbies that they wouldn't prioritize the musical. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. It makes you rethink. I mean, that series is very beloved. I love that series. It raised me, but definitely
she didn't
views
do
it through
anything wrong.
I know.
Yeah. She just wanted the lead in the school musical.
And she deserved it.
She really did. She dedicated her life to theater.
She really did. Anyways, I'm going to send you that video after because it's awesome.
Oh, please do. We should also link it.
Yeah, we'll link it. It's pretty awesome.
But yeah, no, that's the one of the things about the Mean Girl that I feel like could even be criticized more now, and I would love to see it in modern film tropes, is that it's basically just girls who don't have good outlets.
Yeah.
Who are taking their aggression out on others.
The next one is like the awkward to hot, which is pretty common. So
it's everywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we're pretty familiar with this storyline where the awkward girl with stereotypically unattractive style finds herself. Or like the classic, like she has glasses on, takes off the glasses, and suddenly she's hot. And she changes everything about herself in order to either become more popular or become more attractive to a male love interest. And of course, like it's like the male crush doesn't notice her until she does transform.
Yes.
This is like a quote from the same article I was referencing where it says she undergoes a transformation into a version of herself that will be everything the guy wants her to be because there's just no way a movie could exist where the male lead falls in love with the female lead for who she is, which is just funny. Yeah. Some examples of this one is Sandy from Grease, which like now watching that movie as an older person, it's like the whole like point of that movie was at the end Sandy was going to dress up in leather and smoke a cigarette, and then Danny was just going to be like, here we go. Like,
yeah, I'm really confused by that movie, so beloved, especially by like adults who caution their children against doing anything like that.
I know.
It's
I'm
really, really
the
confusing.
The theme of the
to me.
movie is just like, if you want a guy to like you, just wear leather and smoke a cigarette, and he'll think you're hot, and he will finally be into you. Also, for the record, like, she changes everything about herself after high school is over. Yeah. I'm like, okay, this is the time where you ditch all of that stupidness and you get to
be whoever you
want. Why are we starting this next chapter of our lives like this, Sandy? I do not like that movie.
I will say, I watched it recently again, and at the very end scene, Danny
he's wearing
a Letterman's jacket.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's willing to change himself for her as well.
But then the moment he sees her, he's like, never mind.
Yeah, he's like, back to my cool guy persona because you changed for me, so I don't have to.
Which, you're right. I guess there's the good thing that he at least tried to. But
I know,
he obviously...
but I still hate... Yeah, that they dropped it immediately. They're like, oh, well, Sandy's now hot and cool and sexy. So, like...
Also, like, why can't you be hot, cool, and sexy and, I don't know, be a little bit lame, too?
Yeah, like, he obviously liked her plenty before she wore leather. Like,
you can be sweet and nice, which, granted, you can also be sweet and nice and wear leather.
Yeah,
but
you can wear whatever you want.
You
don't have to change.
for a gross man like Danny Zuko, like, who like left her. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that show gets weirder and weirder.
I watch that movie now. I'm like, what a I hate it.
I don't get it. Like, I don't know what the lesson is. I don't know what the moral is. I don't even understand the story completely.
Yeah, it's because it's almost just like things just keep happening and you don't know why. They just keep
and
happening.
Then there's no really like resolution.
They just all graduated and they're out of there.
Yeah, and it's like, okay. The end. The music's great.
The music's good. I mean, let's be honest. That's why we love the movie, is because the music's so great.
It's just weird that it's like a musical that continues to be performed over and over and over again, and it's like.
Also, like, the idea that musical is ever performed in high schools. I'm like, what?
I know.
What lessons are we perpetuating here?
Yeah, I don't really understand the lesson. I never really did. Even as a teenager, I was like, it's not a very good lesson.
It's not. Other examples of this is like Josie from Never Been Kissed. Mm-hmm. Mia from The Princess Diaries is a big one.
Yes, major.
I love that movie, but
I know.
The cool guy doesn't notice her until she has straight hair and is hot.
That's all it takes, guys. Take off your glasses and get some straight hair.
Yeah, get a blowout. You'll be set. Any man will love you, apparently. Also, even just like going back to like Cinderella, which like isn't quite this because obviously he didn't know her before, but you know, it's kind of like the ugly duckling, rags to riches to get the man type trope.
Agreed. It makes it seem like the most pinnacle part of your life will be a makeover, and then which, like, fair, but no. I mean, I feel great after a new haircut. I mean, we all would love that.
Yeah. I went, actually, I bought a bunch of new clothes yesterday, which it's been a long time since I've spent so much on clothes in one transaction. I was feeling nervous about it, but I mean, I felt great about all the new things I bought. I'm like, we got some new looks here.
I'm obsessed with everything you got.
Me too. God, very extra. Anyways, side note, just to say that I get it. I love a good makeover moment, but we don't do it for the men in our lives. We do it for ourselves.
And it shouldn't change the entire outcome of your life.
Yeah, that's so. You think.
Yeah.
It can be used as confidence builders every now and then, though. That's fine. Oh, yeah, and then there's also, like, Ty Frazier in Clueless, who she kind of also, that's, like, kind of the mean girl and this, where, like, they make her hot, she becomes popular, and then she kind of becomes a mean girl for a second.
Yeah.
Kind of. She, like, dethrones the other top girl.
It's kind of sad because Cher was never really the mean girl.
No, she wasn't. She was just top dog.
That part always makes me sad.
I know, it makes me sad, too.
I love Clueless.
I watched Clueless for the first time, like, a couple months ago.
Really? I love that movie.
Okay, so now is the weird girl.
Yes. So, she's the black sheep, usually pictured in black. It's often used as like a cautionary tale or character. They have like an unusual appearance, contempt for other people, few or no friends, no romantic partner. Sometimes, and like often labeled as like a slut or a lesbian in order for them to like characterize why she's weird.
Or, like, it's why she's more of an outcast.
Yes. And it's the idea that like we celebrate individuality until we don't understand it, and then it's not allowed anymore. Something that's interesting about the weird girl is it can change a lot from time period to time period. So like Jo in Little Women could maybe be the weird girl because she has like the dreams of being a writer and isn't that interested in marriage. It's basically anyone who's so against the societal standards at the time that people just don't understand or comprehend them at all.
Or even like Beauty and the Beast with Belle. Like the whole opening song is about how the town thinks she's kind of weird.
Exactly. And it's like, is she weird? No, she's a conventionally beautiful, smart woman.
Yes.
but
like,
but she's considered
objectively
weird.
unweird.
Yeah. So one thing that's really cool about the weird girl is it's kind of been reclaimed recently.
Yeah.
And like some examples are like Wicked the musical, how they took like this weird character of like the Wicked Witch of the West and turned her into like the main character of a musical that helped describe why she did all the things she did. Same with like Maleficent the movie. Because the weird girl is often used as like a villain in a fantasy setting as well.
Because she's like the outcast in some way.
Exactly. There are like some subcategories, just like the blondes, because of course there's different facets of weird, right?
Absolutely.
So you have the goth, who's obsessed with death, wears all black, super melodramatic. Think of like Lydia Dietz in Beetlejuice, Wednesday Addams, Abby from NCIS. Kind of the cool part about all of these different characters, though, I kind of love the weird girl. This might be my favorite trope.
No, I do too.
Because they're all like so complex in their own fun little way, and it just like makes my day. Like I feel like the weird girl's always like my favorite.
Well, and I feel like too, at least we have a character that's allowed to be complex, you know?
Exactly.
Because women are complex, and I feel like with a lot of these other stereotypes, they're maybe a little bit more single faceted, where at least like here they're allowed to have almost like reasons for why they are, or varying interests, you know?
Yes. No, I agree completely. And I think it's really fun. Wednesday Addams, one of the fun things about her that she challenges is that even though the rest of the world views her as weird, her family supports her in her weirdness.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
So she's able to thrive. Abby from NCIS, if you've seen that, she wanted to portray a goth character who, instead of being like tortured and tormented, was like happy, totally put together, accomplished, and loved by all of her peers.
Like that's just what she wanted to look like, or dress like.
Yeah. Another one is like the smart ass. So it's usually where they use it as a defensive skill for dealing with people who don't like them being weird. However, they usually end up connecting with people, whether like in the film or in the audience, in ways that they don't intend to. Because everyone kind of relates to this character, like
feeling like the weird one.
Yeah. Yes. There is one who's like really famous. I have never seen this, but it's Daria Morgendorffer from, I think it's the show. Is it Daria? Oh, Beavis and Butthead. And it's spin-off Daria.
Okay, yeah,
so,
I actually don't know that, but
I don't either. But she's a really, really famous trope of this character, or character with this trope, where in her school, like one of the popular kids dies, and then everyone starts coming to her to like cope with their pain because she understands sadness and pain and like is able to detach herself from emotions. Yeah. So a lot of that happens with like the smartass character, where you're able to connect with them in a way that you didn't expect. Another example is like Janice from Mean Girls, where she always has like a quirky remark to everything, and that's how she copes with her own weirdness. My favorite is April from Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's like totally the weird girl, right? But like she's beloved, she has a stable relationship, she raises a family, has a great career, like, but she's the weird girl. The other examples are the basket cases. So this is usually the ones who have like some traumatic life experiences. Their lives are chaos and disorder. Sometimes they're seen as like dramatic attention seekers. A lot of the times it's performative. They tell a lot of lies. They need a ton of attention. like Marla Singer from Fight Club or Allison Reynolds from Breakfast Club. Both of them are examples of the basket case. The sad part about the basket case is this one's probably the most sexist of all of the weird girl tropes, because the end is always them to be normalized. The happy ending is for them to be normal. And that kind of destroys the weird girl in them. So that's sad. Then we have my favorite, the space cadets. They exist in their own world, believe in the impossible and ridiculous, literally don't care what anyone thinks, like at all. Like, it's not just performative, like they literally do not care. Underestimated, but way smarter than anyone thinks. And their out of the box thinking ends up like saving a scenario or the show in one way or another. Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter, Phoebe from Friends, like the space cadets who are just end up being awesome in their own way.
Yes.
And then lastly is the sad weird girl. It's the awkward misfits. They don't enjoy being weird. They're usually seen as the victim. This is when they have unflattering clothing, glasses, ugly, awkward, and the abuse of being weird usually messes them up rather than making them better. It's the weird girl who's weird but doesn't want to be weird. And that one, just like the basket case, makes me sad. So the other three, though, the space cadets, the smartass, and the goths, those are like my favorite TV tropes. They're multifaceted and complex. They usually end up having a fun, like, own ending that has nothing to do with stereotypes, and I just love them. So I love the weird girl.
The weird ones too.
Yeah. Just to say, the fun part is that like you may not always relate to like being the bombshell blonde or the cool girl or anything, but everyone at some point in their life feels a little weird.
They feel like they're the weird one.
Yeah.
That's true. I love that. Okay, so our very last one, we talked about it a little bit, I think last week or a couple weeks ago, which is the manic pixie dream girl.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think, especially growing up in the era of like John Green novels, with Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, Fault in Our Stars, there's a lot of, not even just manic pixie dream girls, because I think Fault in Our Stars, it was the dream boy, right?
Yeah.
But there's definitely those just weird characters. But to define it, if you are unfamiliar with the term, they're generally very quirky, playful, different, play by their own rules, bubbly, free-spirited women that really just exist solely to teach the man in the story to embrace life and be more adventurous. Basically, she's kind of like the stereotypical male fantasy. And by the end of the movie, the manic pixie dream girl has transformed the man into seeing life with these brand new eyes, breaking him out of his shell. However, she remains completely unchanged with really no plotline of her own. Or she dies. That's also pretty common.
Dying is really common. Or like disappears.
Yeah, or disappears. Apparently she's like very outgoing, never really approached by men. This is the kind of girl where it's like she has weird taste in music, weird taste in books, weird thoughts that are just like, I'm trying to think of an example. I feel like Paper Towns probably has one where she's like, we're all just paper people in paper towns, and it's like,
yes. It's like, oh, how deep and philosophical.
What does that mean?
Yeah. No, that's totally it. Or like she likes the bands that no one else listens to.
Or is like that. There's so many funny TikToks of people who like impersonate the manic pixie dream girl.
I feel like I just thought about this, but I feel like the manic pixie dream girl is the other side of the cool girl coin. Yeah. It's the feminine version of the male fantasy, where the other one's the more masculine version of the male fantasy. I feel like they're literally the same, except one's allowed to be like quirky and weird, and one needs to be like cool and masculine and tomboy.
It's almost though I feel like it's like 4 different kind of guys. You know what I mean? Where like some guys want this, whereas others would want the other.
Yep.
Like it's almost like it's catering just to different types that people might have. But it's like the weird thing too, because it's like as a girl, like reading these characters, like reading Looking for Alaska, right? I remember just being like, wow, Alaska's so cool. I wish someone would think of me this way. I wish someone would be so intrigued by me in this way.
Well, yeah, because it's like, whoa, he's like so interested in her. He's fascinated by her.
Like he worships her almost.
Yeah, and it's like, whoa, that must be so cool to feel that way.
Yeah, to be desired that way. Yeah.
Yeah, but the sad part is that it's like, but he's not actually seeing her for who she is. He's seeing her for how he wants her to be.
Or like this weird pedestal that he's like created in his brain of like, oh, this is going to be the woman who saves me.
Yeah.
When it's like, you're not seeing them as a person, you're seeing them as a potential means to an end.
Exactly. Yeah, he gives her a role in his life without any consideration for the fact that she has her own life to live.
And like her own say in what that is as well. And if she's not immediately meeting his needs, she's this evil monster too, you know. I think a good example of this is 500 Days of Summer. And I think the first time I watched that movie, I was like, oh, summer's the worst, right? But then once I kind of like realized this term, then I watched it again and it was like, okay, this whole time she's communicating every step of the way. Like, yeah, is she being like ridiculous in the sense that sometimes we've all, I feel like we've all done this where it's like we say we don't want a relationship yet we're acting as if we're in a relationship. Like, yeah, like that's maybe not the best behavior, but at the same time she's very communicative the entire way through as to what this is to her, yet, you know, he won't let that be true and is almost like creating things in his mind. And this whole movie, like, we don't even see her side of the story at all. It's only just through his gaze, which I feel like the movie kind of did that on purpose, where it's like, because I think there's like even a quote from I think he like says something that it's like, no, I think as the actor, he admitted like, no, the bad guy in the story is Tom. I think that's his name, the character. Like, he puts so much on this person that's just like, no, you can't make this other, I don't know. It's a weird way of objectifying a person.
It is. Another really great example from classic film is Audrey Hepburn from Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, yeah.
I love that movie, but she's the epitome.
Like the weird, quirky girl who no one can figure out, and the man just wants to fix her, and not fix her, but like understand her and kind of rein her in, you know, for himself.
Oh, also, apparently Belle from Beauty and the Beast has been called a manic pixie dream girl. Their ultimate narrative goal is to give dimension to the central main character. She saves him.
Ah, it's like a sneaky pixie dream girl.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. There's a ton of them. I feel like it gets there's a lot that are hidden too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I said, like with Paper Towns and Looking for Alaska, and then this 500 Days of Summer, it painted it so obviously that you just like couldn't really deny it anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Are there any other tropes that we should
Oh man,
discuss?
I'll list off a bunch.
Yeah, list them off because obviously there's so many.
Yes. So the smart girl, think Hermione Granger, or there's more, I'm sure. I just can't immediately list them.
Yes.
Yeah. The femme fatale. The girly girl, the woman child, which I thought was an interesting one.
Yeah.
The girl next door, literally Taylor Swift's music video. You Belong With Me. The crazy woman, the tough girl, which I think could go hand in hand with the cool girl, but is a little bit different. Like I said, the racist ones of like the spicy Latina, the strong black woman, the model minority, the Karen is actually a trope. The feminist is becoming a more common trope.
Yeah.
The sick girl. This one's like very common with all the movies that have been coming out where she's sick. And that's her whole defining trait. The tomboy, the bad mom, the neurotic type A woman. I think like Monica Geller. Yeah. This one, I have no idea, and I want to watch this video from The Take So Bad. They have a whole one called the women in refrigerators trope.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we might have to do a part 2 after I watch some of these other ones, because some of these might be really interesting. We might need to talk about them.
I'm trying to decide what that even refers to. So
I have no idea.
Fun.
Yeah. The Jewish American princess, like the main character in Glee. What's her name? Rachel?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
I think also, Rachel from Friends, too. I was like, what's her name? Rachel from Friends, because she's the Jewish American princess. And there's a bunch of those as well. The funny fat girl. I also think just the fat girl in general is usually a trope.
Yeah.
There's a whole trope called the Becky trope, which I don't know that one either. The final girl. which I'm assuming might refer to like horror movies, like The Last One Standing.
Okay, yeah.
The teen mom, the girl boss, which I think also kind of has to do with the working woman, but a little bit of a difference on that. The romance addict, the wicked stepmother, the Disney princess, the female assassin, like the actress, like the struggling actress, or and then the angry woman, which is basically the mean girl, just like angrier and later in life. And
maybe older, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's tons. And this isn't even all of them. Like, there's tropes everywhere, obviously.
Yes.
And like we said, there's relationship tropes too, like enemies to lovers, powerful male and unassuming female, powerful female and dominant male, like all the different ones.
Yes.
So tropes are abundant, that's for sure.
It's like interesting to see like how we've created like caricatures for each other, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we're creating these movies and we're consuming them. And like so many movies that you mentioned, like I love these movies too, you know? Like I grew up with them. I absolutely loved them. But I think it's also good to like see what they are and like also just be aware of stereotypes that are being perpetuated. But like that doesn't mean you can't enjoy them.
No, definitely. Like, same thing. Like, there's a lot of great movies that we listed, and I think you can still love them and watch them as long as you're just aware of what's being perpetuated.
Yeah, exactly.
I also wonder a lot of the times if the reason why we create things like this is just like we have this undeniable need as humans to define ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, personality tests and zodiacs and enneagrams and Hogwarts houses and everything. Like, we're constantly sorting ourselves into things and categorizing ourselves and trying to define who we are as a human to make ourselves easier to explain to other people,
or even to like make us feel like we belong because we are this type of way and other people are like us.
We fit a trope. We could relate to someone in a movie because that's who we are. Like, what Friends character are you? What New Girl character are you? Like, we're constantly trying to define who we are, and we don't have to.
Yeah, no, I like that.
And I'm guilty of it too. Like,
oh yeah,
I think everyone is.
Like, I love a good personality quiz. They're the best.
Totally. Tell me what I am. Tell me what type I am. Let me read everything about it and see how I relate.
Yeah, like my Myers-Briggs personality. I'm like, yes, tell me more. I want to know all about being an ENFP.
Yeah, I'm the same one.
Yep.
ENFP.
A lot of my friends are, oddly enough.
Yeah. Funny, isn't it?
I'm like, wait, I get you. No, I think that's true. I mean, and like also at the same time, like I think there's something to be acknowledged of like there is a lot of humor in poking fun at the silly things we do stereotypically, you know, like and some ways like it can be harmless and it can be fun, you know, like so like obviously nowadays if there's like a dumb blonde character, I think everyone watching it knows that it's just a funny trope, you know what I mean? And I think some of these things are harmless, but at the same time I think it's good just to be aware of them and like recognize like, hey, we're watching movie, we're watching very emphasized characters that don't really exist this way in the real world. It's just this is a movie, you know, like this is for our entertainment, and just recognizing it for what it is too.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't think tropes are going anywhere. So
oh no.
We just need to be a little bit more aware of them.
Let people be complicated.
You can be the weird girl and the bombshell blonde and the cool girl a little bit and everything else.
And
you
everything.
Can be a mixture. Yeah.
Yes. You know,
why not? Yourself. And I will say that is one of the things that I really, really love about modern media is I think we're getting closer. Yeah. It's kind of fun to see it evolve and
like to see people being portrayed as like just complicated people rather than one singular identity.
Like as I was going through this, I kept thinking of Betty from Riverdale because she is into cars. Like she's a mechanic and she fixes up cars, but she's not the cool girl. And she's blonde, but she doesn't fit a lot of like the dumb blonde or the blonde bombshell. She doesn't fit those tropes. And she has a ton of ambition, but she's not seen as a working woman. And she's really popular, but she isn't a mean girl.
Yeah.
And like all of these things, like she fits it really, really well. She's really smart, and her and Veronica have like the blonde brunette dichotomy, but it ends really soon and then they're best friends. So I just think like that shows an example of how the comics didn't have that with Betty. Like they were very stereotypical sexist. From what I understand, I haven't read them, but that the show, because it's appealing to a new, more modern audience, was able to take these tropes and create a multi-dimensional character.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I haven't really seen much of Riverdale, so now I'm thinking I should watch it.
I love it. It's super cheesy, so prepare yourself for that, but you end up loving it anyway.
I love a good cheesy show. It's fine.
You're like, this is so cheesy, and then you're like, but I'm obsessed.
But I love it. I cannot look away.
Yeah. So
That's
no,
amazing.
really think it's fun that that's happening in modern media, and I'm excited for more tropes like that to happen.
Yeah,
where they're
I love it.
challenged.
Well, hope everyone enjoyed listening to us talk about this. But yeah, thanks for being here. If you have any fave or least fave movie tropes, definitely let us know.
Yeah.
And follow us on the gram. Don't know why I refer to it as that, but morethanamuse.podcast. Also email us, morethanamuse.podcast, if you would like to, at gmail.com.
And leave us a review. I would really love some reviews. I know Sadie would too. So we're just going to keep asking you until you do it. If you've enjoyed it, if you listened to more than 2 episodes, go leave a review.
That is everything. We will see you all back next week with a new fun episode.
We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.